Well, good evening, everyone. We are so happy that you have joined us tonight for this Fireside Chat. Usually our lead pastor, Dave D'Angelo, is here kind of leading the charge for these. But tonight we are kind of hijacking this Fireside Chat for a ladies' night. So we have given him the night off, and we are here together. My name is Shannon, and I am a part of Northway's directional leadership team. And we wanted to just take some time this week, tonight, to honor the ladies in our life, to honor the women and God's just nature and character that has been deposited in us through them. Because, hint, hint, Sunday is Mother's Day. So for all you kids out there and dads, pay attention, you got a few days left. So our moms are just, they're really important to us, whether they gave birth to us or they're a spiritual mom in our life that has mentored us. They have helped to form and shape who we are. And I know right now during this kind of crisis, one of the things that keeps coming to mind is the importance of just being grateful and how grateful we are for our relationships. And I don't know about you, but for me, I'm just so grateful for my mom. And she lives like 10 minutes away, and it's been weeks and weeks of physical distancing, and we haven't really seen each other up close. And I'm just like really missing her right now and wanting to give her a big hug. So Mama, here's a big hug from me to you through the screen, and I know all of us here tonight are feeling that as well. So we just are joined here tonight by some amazing women from across multiple campuses, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves. You know, as it comes to our relationships with our moms, some of us, you know, this topic can be hard because maybe we have a really challenging relationship with her or she's not in our life, and for others, they're our best friend. And I think we're going to hear some of those stories tonight. We just want to encourage you during this time and kind of turn our hearts just into a different way right now in this season, on this special week where we celebrate moms. So I'm going to start right here with Elise. Just introduce yourself, your campus, and something about you that explains the momness in your life.
Okay, so I am Elise Jones. I am from Northway, Beaver Valley. I am a single mother of 3 girls. And I also have an adoptive mom.
Hi, I'm Sandy Weiss. I am the discipleship director at Northway Dormont. Shout out to Northway Dormont. I have worked at Northway for 17 years, and through that time I've gotten to mentor a lot of wonderful young women. My favorite young women are my daughters, Amanda and Emily. And I am a new grandma to sweet Sienna, who is a little over 1 year old. And my mom, Lois Hartner, was a wonderful woman. She passed away 28 years ago. And I'm so excited to be here tonight to share some stories and honor her.
I'm Julia Allen. I am at Northway's Oakland campus. Shout out to Oakland. Love you and miss you guys a ton. My husband Dennis is the pastor at Northway Oakland. I am a mom to 5 of my own kids, and I work as a pediatric physician assistant, so I have the privilege of getting to work alongside a lot of mothers, a lot of new mothers, trying to help them learn how to navigate motherhood. I have had the privilege of being mothered by a wonderful mother of my own who raised me in this church, and outside of the church, I've had a lot of fantastic spiritual mothers that have just birthed a lot of good things into me. I also get to be a mom alongside some friends that hold me together and teach me a lot about mothering.
So my name is Katrina Johnson. I work on the discipleship team here at the Wexford campus. And while I wasn't able to have much of a relationship with my mom, God has just brought some incredible spiritual moms and mentors into my life. And I'm able to mentor some young women through Rooted, so shout out to them. And yeah, I'm not a mom or a grandmom, but yeah, excited to be here. So.
Well, thanks everybody. I think we had a little technical difficulty there with some sound, but we got it figured out, so hopefully we'll be working right now. For me, I am a mom of I've got two kids, Kaylee and Brennan. Hello at home. I'm a stepmom to Ethan. I've been a dorm mom, and I have a mom who was kind of a mentor to me, my own mother, who kind of worked on staff here at Northway for 25 years, and I've had lots of spiritual moms in my life. So we just want to kind of shout out to all those moms, wherever they're at, whether you have kids or you don't have kids. We all have influence in people's lives, and we just kind of want to share about that tonight. And we want to start out just kind of with a first question. I'm going to throw this one over to you, Julia. Just kind of what character of God did your mom kind of place in you, input, and what did you garner from her, from your relationship with her and her example?
I would say the first thing that came to mind with that question was that my mom just modeled through the example of her life the inclusiveness of God, his desire to invite all people into his family. Our home growing up was a place that we just always had extra people around. We always knew that it was a safe place to invite other people in. I remember for holidays, we always had kind of extra folks at our table because my parents were always inviting anybody they knew that maybe wasn't going to be with family for a special occasion. I know that growing up in middle school and high school, my sisters and I, my parents would host Bible studies for our friends at our house, and even outside of any sort of structured environment, it was a home that our friends always knew they were welcome to. And I think that taught me so much about God's desire to accept every one of us, no matter what we've done, no matter who we are, no matter what our history might be, no matter what we might think about him. My mom was always ready and waiting to invite someone in. She always made sure there was some kind of food available, and she always made sure there were hugs. And I think that really taught me how I want to orient myself towards other people and just trying to live my life in a way that Jesus lived his life, which was always inviting people and drawing them to himself.
That's so good. So having grown up kind of alongside your family, I don't know if you knew this, but your mom and dad were my elementary school, like Sunday school teachers.
I believe that. I mean, my dad taught Sunday school for
So I remember when you were born.
Yeah.
Like, it was like a really cool day in class when they brought you in. So, and my sister is one of your good friends.
Yes.
And I know, like,
Yep.
so many hours spent, you know, crossing tables, going into different homes. It's a brilliant thing to have that kind of an open door
Yeah,
kind of
your
policy.
home was very much that too. So, yeah.
So which makes me think I was, so Elise, I was talking to Grace, who is a part of our Beaver Valley campus and works with me on staff. And she was just telling me a little bit about you. I didn't know much about you. And talking about how your house sounds very much the same.
Yeah.
You have a really welcoming house. What deposit did your mom make in you?
My mom taught me about faith and to believe in God, that he will always supply. It was just me and her growing up, because she had got divorced in my younger years, and so it was just me and her. And so she's always worked, but she's never let me like want for anything. But she always has said that, you know, God will always supply. Like, even when I would see that there was something that we didn't have, she just always said that God would supply. And it's like now I carry it with me. And my home is an open door policy, and nobody knocks. and I just believe the same thing. Like, my house lacks for no food. It lacks, you know, it just never lacks. And I just believe that God will literally always supply.
That's so good. Wow, yeah. It's my brother and his wife live down in Homewood and kind of work with our LAMP program and our LAMP mentors. Shout out to LAMP. And theirs is also very much an open door policy. So they've always got stock in the freezer and the pantries, making sure that they feed people. So which makes me think of you, Sandy. You are one of seven
children.
Kids?
Yeah. Yeah, with 7 children, and my mom was she really showed us humility and strength. She had this picture on the wall. It was a print of Jesus as the carpenter, and she loved it so much because she loved that it showed his strength, but yet doing a humble job. And that is such a picture of my mom. So we had 7 kids in the house. We grew up in a home with 4 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. Yes, 1 bathroom. And my dad worked so hard his whole life, and we just never had a lot of money, so my mom really learned to sacrifice. And we never went without a hot meal on the table or clothes in our closets. But she definitely learned to sacrifice, and she always wanted us to have what we needed before she had her things. So it makes me think of, she would always, you know when you get a loaf of sliced bread and there's that piece at the end that's just like really skinny, like that crust end? When you put it in the toaster, it always burns. So it was until I was an adult, I think I was a mom, when I realized my mom probably didn't really like that end of the bread, and she probably didn't really want the burnt grilled cheese sandwich. And she probably really didn't want the last plain donut at the end after we all had ours. But that's what she wanted. She wanted us to have the best. And I learned so much about being a servant leader from my mom, but I really never learned to eat that end crust of bread.
None of us really.
No, nobody really wants that.
I didn't turn it around.
It's a big sacrifice.
How about you, Katrina?
Yeah, so like I said in my intro, I'm not really close with my mom, but one of my spiritual mentors really taught me a lot about God's unconditional love. And so a while back, she saw that I was just struggling a lot with perfectionism. And she sat me down one day and she's just like, Katrina, I see you and I see all the things that you do and I see how hard you work. And I just need you to know that I love you, and it has nothing to do with how good you are at your job or how funny you are or all these things that you do well. It's literally just who you are and your heart, and that's what I love. And like my heart like melted, but I didn't believe her, but it was just like this beautiful statement. And over the months that followed, she kept telling me this, and eventually I started to believe her. And this like completely filtered into my relationship with God, because I had realized I saw God that way, of God is just wanting me to do for him. He's wanting me to work really hard for him. And it freed me to realize like God's not looking for me to be his employee or to be his servant. He wants me to just love and be loved. And so that relationship with her just really opened the door for that. So.
Wow, those relationships, man. It isn't just, our physical moms. Those spiritual moms in our lives, I know from the ones that have been in my life, I think of just some even youth leaders over the years who have just deposited so much in me that, man, you just can't undervalue those relationships, even if you have a hard relationship with your mom. And so we kind of want to shift that conversation a little bit to talk about kind of some of the challenges that we've had to work through as it relates to our moms. And Sandy, you mentioned that you lost your mom.
Yeah, and that is my challenge, was not having my mom in my life. I mean, I did in a wonderful way for a long time, but when I was 25 years old, I was 6 months pregnant, and my mom died. And I was so just devastated. And I wanted to just keep really busy and be with people all the time so I wouldn't have to really feel my feelings. And about a month later, I had some serious complications with my pregnancy, so I ended up being on bed rest for the next 4 weeks. And that was the thing I feared most. I mean, my husband was wonderful, but he was working this crazy job. He was working 80 hours or more a week, so I was alone so much. And that was really where God met me. And he gave me such peace and such comfort, and I could feel his presence. And it's funny because it's what I feared the most, is what God knew I needed the most at that time. But that left a really big hole in my life, not having my mom. And I have wonderful sisters and I had great friends, but I always kind of wanted that spiritual mom or that mentor in my life, but I didn't really work hard enough. I didn't really pursue it enough. So I just want to say, young women, if you have this empty place in your life, find a woman that you connect with who is a season or two ahead of you in life, and be brave and ask them to mentor you or disciple you. You will not be sorry. You will gain so much from that relationship. And also, older women, even if you don't realize it, you have a wealth of experience and wisdom in your life that you can share with somebody. So seek out that woman, that younger woman in your life, and you will be amazed at what God will do in that situation.
That's so good, Sandy. I like what you said there about the thing you feared the most then becomes that period of time where you value the most because of the deposit that God put in you. And how, I love the nature of God because he created male and female, which means he doesn't just understand the father side, he gets the mother side. And he does that for us, and he deposits those things in us through other people. For me, just reminded me when I was 22, so talk about a challenge maybe for my mom, the Lord called me to be a missionary in Asia. And I'm the firstborn. I'm like the firstborn of like all of my cousins. And so like to release your child to go to a place where like we couldn't talk to each other, we couldn't see each other. And probably for her, like fearing that distance. Like how do you give up your oldest child? And one of the most profound things that even I learned during that season was like she wrote me a letter. It's still, Mama, it's still really impactful for me today, where she wrote a letter to the Lord and a letter to me, releasing me to God's care. And really taught me so much about his nature. And that was probably one of the hardest seasons in my life. And I was alone, but at the same time, like my family wasn't close, but she'd released me. And then the Lord stepped in, and he's so faithful. He provides family for us. So there were people there where I lived that became like my new moms and my new grandmoms and my new sisters. And it's a beautiful thing to see kind of how he provides in the midst of our deepest pain in some of those ways. And so, Julie, I know that you've had some of that pain that you've experienced with your family. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I very much identify with your statement that it's in that place that you feared the most that the Lord met you most closely. And I think that's also probably the greatest challenge that I've worked through with my mom was when about 8 years ago, we very suddenly and unexpectedly lost my dad. And he was kind of one of those figures in the family that was just that strong, healthy rock that everyone depended on. He was the person that when he was around, everybody felt safe and everybody knew everything was going to be okay. And so losing him, that was devastating to my mom and my two sisters and I. And I remember in that season, I think the challenges that we worked through were so foundational to the people that God would then kind of lead us on to be after that. We had to learn what grief looks like for different people and how people cycle through phases of grief and kind of go backwards sometimes and go through that multiple times, and how people grieve in different manners. And sometimes the ways that we grieved were hurtful to each other. And I think he really taught us so much during that time, and kind of watching my mom lose her spouse, lose her partner, and having to just completely alter the way that she approached her daily life. God taught me so much about extending just an abundance of grace and mercy to the people that I love the most. I think that, in the context of family and those people that we depend on, it's also easy to sometimes get resentful when they aren't what we want them to be. But recognizing in that season, all people are hurting, all people are grieving something, all people have lost something, and we kind of process those things differently. And I think we learned a lot in that season how to love each other better and differently, how to pray for each other in ways that we'd never even thought to before, and how to, you talk about this idea of releasing. I remember processing through this idea that I had to release my mom and my sisters to allow the Lord to care for them and meet them where he needed to meet them, that we couldn't be for each other everything. We couldn't replace our dad for each other. We had to trust that the Lord was sufficient, that his grace really did meet each of them and us where we needed it to be.
I think that's really profound, especially in the midst of what we're experiencing right now with this crisis where that distancing is happening. I think we have an opportunity here for the Lord to kind of do some deep work in us and those things that we release. We're having to release a whole lot.
Yeah, and it's
Whole
messy.
lot. And it's messy and it's not normal. And our schedules are tossed up in the air, and we're homeschooling and working and, missing some of those people, and like our moms who take care of our kids or help us with that. And it's a season where I think that the Lord is giving us an opportunity to really learn how to even receive from him, and let him mother us, parent us, care for us in a way that maybe some of us have never experienced before. So if you're watching today, pay attention. If he's working on those areas in your heart, man, these are those times for transformation where he does a work and he teaches us in these places of our deepest pain how sufficient and faithful and good he is to us. So thanks for sharing that. I know that's hard. Julia, how about you, Elise, in that kind of challenge place?
For us, I think the biggest challenge that me and my mom had were trying to navigating through when I met my birth mom. Because it was just me and her, and me being a mother now, I totally get it, because my kids on my bad days, they come and they, show me the light, and it makes me happy. And when I met my birth mom, I didn't understand why she was so troubled, because I was like her light in such of a dark time. And I think she was kind of afraid of, what would I do? Would I act different? And I'm such a people person. So meeting her, it was like really just meeting. It was closure for me, but it was also, I wasn't angry. God didn't allow me to be angry or anything like that. And so it was kind of like the question in my mom's head, probably all the 24 years of my life, like what would happen? And so my mom was like, what, she wasn't, I don't want to say she wasn't like going with it, but she kind of kept her distance with it too. Because my birth family is also totally different than the way I was raised. And so that was definitely a step that she had to take. And I'm stuck in a place where I had to, I want to know this, but then I need to make sure that my mom is comfortable too, in the whole entire thing. And so I think once my mom realized that I was solid, I wasn't gonna, flip the script with her. And then my mom, my adopted mom, the one that adopted me, she instilled a love in me that I was able to show to my birth family. And so I think once we started changing the perspective of the whole thing, how God really placed her in my life. And she built me up to be strong, to deal with it all. If it wasn't for my mom raising me the way that she did, because my birth mom, I met her, but I don't talk to her. I talk to her probably every couple of months, or it's me initiating the contact or whatever. And so I appreciate my mom for raising me the way she did, but once we looked at it through God's lens, it mellowed everything out. Once my mom seen that, I was here, that she probably got me for a reason to spread love there that is not there. And so that was a very hard time for us, because I never want to hurt nobody. I try. That's one thing I try to do, is to never put anybody in that place. But that was a really time. But when we changed our perspective, and then she looked at it like that, gave me closure. Because it was a question in my head too. I wonder, because they're quiet and I'm so loud and outgoing, and I've just always been this loud person, and I met them and I get it. And so with that, there was a lot of reasons to it. And once the pieces started coming together, my mom was able to sit confident in the fact that you were my mother. God placed you there for a reason. She is what I know as a mother. And that was it. And we just kind of accepted it, and now we're able to move forward. But
I love how you hit on just the importance of perspective in the midst of it. And I just, I want to think of all the, adoptive moms, foster moms, stepmoms, birth moms who release their kids. Man, there is such courage, I think, in a lot of those roles in particular, because of what you're releasing, embracing, enveloping. How do you come alongside, both families and juggle that with grace? And it's not easy,
It's not. And I find myself a lot of times even encouraging my birth mother.
Yeah. Yep.
And I have said to her, I actually just wrote her like a couple of weeks ago, and I told her, I said, God knew we were strong enough to be apart. And we're able to come back. And I remind her that I'm not angry. And it is definitely it's a struggle.
Yeah.
Trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I learned not to ask why and just accept the now.
Yeah. Sometimes there just aren't good answers to the whys. That's why we trust the one who knows all of that. How about you, Katrina? I know probably a pretty hard relationship with your mom, you mentioned, and kind of what has God taught you through all of that?
Yeah, I would say the biggest challenge was just like working through a lot of my own things, and then forgiveness for my mom. And I became a Christian when I was 14 years old, and so at that time didn't have any forgiveness. And they talk a lot about it sometimes of like unforgiveness is drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. But like I didn't think of it that way. It wasn't that I had any ill will towards my mom or that I hated her. It wasn't rooted out of that. It was all more just self-protection and like wanting to protect myself and to deal with the pain that I had. And so, as a 14-year-old, start praying for my mom because that's the thing I'm supposed to do. But my prayer was always just like, God, change her. God, help her to be different. And, it's teenager. So like, okay. But like, as I got older and matured more, like I really allowed the Lord to like work on my own heart. And as I started to heal all of these broken places and letting God into all of that, my prayer really shifted. And now to be able to just say, God, I just pray for my mom and I help me to see her the way that you see her and help her to like know you, like put people in her life that can speak truth into her life, help her to have healing in her broken places. And I just think it was such a challenge. I mean, that was like almost 2 decades that I just described of like going from there to here. But like just opening my heart to the Lord to let him do that work is the only way that I ever was able to have any kind of like healing and forgiveness. So
I think that's something probably, I don't know how many people are out listening tonight, but those relationships that we have with our parents can be some of the most beautiful and some of the most painful. And just that word about forgiveness and the power of forgiveness and the power of just asking God to change you and releasing your parent in that act of forgiveness so that he can work on them in his time is just a really, really beautiful, hard, complicated journey, but so good. So thank you for just opening up and sharing about that, Katrina. Well, we want to shift a little bit. That was kind of the hard, but those are things that, that's part of the deposit that's in our lives. And we want to just shift a little bit to just talk about how your relationship with your mom or spiritual mom or a mentor mom in your life has shaped you kind of for the better. Elise, can we start with you there?
Yeah, that's fine. With my mother, she always encouraged me. She always kept God in the midst, no matter what it was. Like literally, no matter what it was. And even in my times growing up, I probably was not the easiest teenager.
Are there those?
Yeah. And so, even in that time, she literally would just, I would do something that she would say that I wasn't supposed to do. Like one time, I literally snuck away to go see my boyfriend, and I got hit by a car. Oh my God. And you know what she said? She said, hey, God, he he's waking you up. You better take it seriously. And ever since then, like I was like, there's no other way that she can relate to something crazy. But she literally always instilled God in my life. And just talking with him, she would talk to him. She would pray out loud. And I would see her read her word, and even we grew up in Virginia, and she would read her word on the beach, like, and just let me play, and I so get it now. Like, I so get it. Like, I'll be doing my girl's hair and I'll be praying, or just in the midst of anything. I learned that there's no perfect time to pray. You can pray anywhere at all times, and she instilled that in me. And I'm also a leader for Young Lives with teen moms. And so she not only instilled in me those great things, but I'm able to pass it out to the community, to, you know, thousands of young moms. So I just appreciate her for that. You know, just to keep the faith and just to believe, and it's just, yeah, it's a good thing.
I love that. My own mom was very much like that a lot too. And I remember growing up, my mom being a worship leader. One of the things that she most instilled in me or shaped in me was just her devotional life. And I just, every time when you stumble on your mom when she's reading the word, or my mom just would sit for hours and play the piano and write music and write worship songs and just worship. I can still remember some of the cheesy 81 we used to sing here. But it was a beautiful thing to have that deposited in my life and realize that, in everywhere and in every way we can worship, and that our kids, like, we weren't that family. Like, we were devastatingly unsuccessful at family devotional time. Like, it never went well. I don't know why, but it just didn't happen. But every single one of us caught that relationship with the Lord from just stumbling on my parents and just watching them in action. And it didn't take them like preaching at us. It was literally us just watching them and catching them in that. So that's one of the things I'm like trying to learn with my kids as we attempt some of those devotional times that maybe don't go so well. Great ideals, but reality is always a totally different place. So I imagine that might be similar in your house, Julia, with
Absolutely.
5 running around. How about share a little bit on it from your perspective?
Yes. I appreciate that idea of just embracing the imperfection and trying to see God in the midst of that. And I think my mom was also a mom that I would come down in the morning and she would be sitting, I remember this really bright magenta fuzzy pink bathrobe that she'd be sitting in at the kitchen table with her Bible and her coffee. That image is sealed in my mind, that idea of just beginning her day always kind of centering herself in that place. And again, as a mom myself, I don't always start my day in the same place with that same serenity, but it really instilled in me this desire and this understanding that I desperately need that connection with my Savior, however that happens. Exactly kind of how you described, Elise, that idea that like I can pray anywhere,
right.
I can pray anytime. It doesn't have to look pretty. It doesn't have to look clean and neat and tidy, but seeking that out, seeking some breath of space to just connect with the Lord is essential to survival and to thriving. I think my mom also really taught me, just through the example of her life, what it looks like to have a bold and courageous faith that is willing to listen to the work of the Spirit and the words of the Spirit and follow, even into places that are unfamiliar. She and my dad were one of the couples that started Northway, and a lot of the early meetings of the church were in my parents' basement. And so I kind of grew up with this awareness my whole life of like this sort of thing can happen when people just gather and pray. And I remember Northway when it was really small and your mom was leading worship. And, I kind of have seen all the progressions. I remember standing on the land that this building is in and praying when it was just empty field. And I think that example of also recognizing too, sometimes the things that the Spirit bursts through us following Him don't always look like we expect them to, and they take on a life of their own, and we have to continue to go back and seek Him and trust that He is good, that He is leading, and that if we are listening, we can join Him in whatever good work He is doing. And I think too, just recognizing that His work is for the good of his people. And we're all going to come at that from a different perspective. That when my parents, left the church that they were a part of, and several of them formed this new church that they called Northway, they didn't leave that old church because they didn't like it, because they had some sort of thing against the people there, but there was an awareness that God was leading them into something new, that he was doing something new, that he had purposed something new, and they were following him in that. And I think that has given me a lot of courage in my faith to recognize what he can do if we're just willing to be bold and courageous in following him. So.
Yeah, that's the thing about families, right? They're all unique. And I even just look across sibling sets and wonder how in the world does God use and frame such different mentalities and wirings, and we've got the emotional ones and the extroverts and the introverts and all of that, and how he uses each of those just stories and the uniqueness of them to bring him glory, to make the family much more exciting.
Yes, that's a good word.
Italian or whatever you want to call it. Me, Dave here right now. I'm Irish, so we're just totally different. But it makes the family beautiful in that way. And even just thinking about you, Katrina, with you got spiritual moms and that type of family. How have they shaped you?
Yeah, so you alluded to this earlier, but it does say in Psalms that God sets the lonely into families. And so when I became a Christian, when I was 14, I started going to this church all by myself, and my parents said I was allowed to go as long as I didn't try to get them to go. And so I started going all by myself. They had no idea who I was. They thought I was the kid of one of the people at the church. But I just started going and getting really involved. But over the years, and especially in this past couple years, I think of it almost like this little wolf pack of women who have come alongside me. I didn't even realize it was happening. But from all these different angles, God just placed a lot of really incredible women in my life. And I don't think I would have known my potential had I not had them speaking that into me, because I think it's just too easy to have your own frame of reference and to have women that are able to say, hey, that's not correct. That perspective isn't right. And even just one time I remember my mentor was talking to me and I was like, I don't believe you, but I trust you. I didn't tell her that. I just thought it. But I didn't believe her, but I trust her so much. And so I went home and I prayed so much about it. And I realized her perspective lined up with scripture. And so there was that. So I was like, okay, maybe I need to reframe my, mind on that. And so, yeah, I'm a completely different person because of the women that God has placed in my life, especially through Northway. And so I don't know where I would be, but not in the place that I'm at. It's hard to become a disciple and then disciple others if you don't know what that looks like. And so to now have these women who are showing me the path, and for me to learn what that looks like, and now to be able to walk with younger women, it's such a gift. So yeah.
Wow, that's so important. I think even being on staff at a church, trying to even instill in all of our members that all of us are spiritual moms, spiritual dads, that we all have, as people have invested in us or not. Maybe we missed out on that. Seek out someone who will, and then put that deposit in somebody else. Make yourself available to them. Become a spiritual mom or dad to someone, because we all, that's what we should be doing. That's that discipleship world, of which, Sandy, you are also a discipleship director for one of our campuses, so I know that's close to your heart too.
It sure is. And one of the things, though, that I really learned from my mom was this strength. She was very quiet and kind, but she was so strong. So she faced cancer twice, and she had, multiple surgeries and chemotherapy and radiation and a bald head, and nausea, and all those horrible things. And I remember days when she couldn't even get up and walk across the room because she was so weak and exhausted. But I never heard her complain. Honestly, I don't remember ever hearing her say a negative word or complain. She just trusted God with her life and with her family and with her health. And I have this beautiful memory of the last night she was at home before she passed away. And some of my siblings and I went to her house, and she wanted to watch this old movie called The In-Laws with Peter Falk. I don't know if you've ever even heard of it, but she loved that movie. So we were sitting there watching it, and I remember just seeing her laying there on the couch, and she was laughing out loud, and she would look around the room and smile because she was so happy to have her family. She's barely holding on to life, but she's so happy and still joyful in some ways. And that was an incredible lesson for me to learn. I learned that I can stand strong and I can laugh in the face of adversity because of what I learned from her. And that's formed me into who I am. And I know that's something that will be with me forever.
Love that word. That's such a
Yeah,
good
that
word,
was
even
good.
for right now.
Yeah.
We can stand strong and we can laugh in the face of adversity. Like, this is a time, man, where joy just, it changes the meter. Laughter, we all need more of it in this moment. Wow, there's so much to celebrate. Thank you, ladies, for just sharing so openly about those relationships in your life. I just celebrate you and the deposits that you're making in your own like posses around you, whether you've got 3-year-olds or twins or small groups. I mean, I know you're leading a small group, and just thank you so much for just sharing this with our community tonight. And we just want to not leave this here, because those stories are, you have your own stories, and we want to just kind of activate you all in this moment, in this week, to take some time to celebrate the women in your life and to honor them for the deposit that they've made in you. And so we just, as we have been talking, just have there been any women coming to mind that just have, kind of stirred in your heart that you could reach out to? Maybe just give them a call and share some encouragement with them, or text them or write them. And this week we have available on Northway's website at northway.org/mom some homemade cards that you can print out, you can color, and you can send to that person in your life that's really had an impact. We want to just, any ways that we can, the Good News Network, shine some good news, lift up some encouragement, encourage some people in our life. I think we all could really, really use that right now. And so we hope that you just have enjoyed this evening with us. And hey, church, before we wrap up in prayer, I just want to make you aware of a couple opportunities that we have coming up here this month. This Sunday is Mother's Day, and every Mother's Day we launch around all of our campuses our baby bottle campaign that supports the centers in our city that help kind of moms and dads who have an unexpected pregnancy and come alongside them. And we're doing a virtual campaign this year. So yesterday, all of the campus pastors sent you out an email that has actually information about that. So take a look at that. Don't forget to do that and support those centers. And if you did not get that and you need to get on our list, in the chat right now, if you would just go ahead and let them know that you want us to, you want to get those emails from us and get that information, that would be great, and leave your information there. And then also coming up later this month, we have a virtual event for the Women of the Well. That's so the women's ministry. They're going to pull together some virtual content for you, some worship and some great teaching. And we just want to encourage you to tune into that later this month when we release it. And so with that, I just want to close and just pray a blessing over you all and all of the women in our lives, and we'll let everybody get to their dinner. Well, Lord God, we just thank you so, so much for all of the women, the beautiful women that you've put in our lives, Lord, whether those have been easy relationships or hard relationships, Lord, there's so much that we have learned through them. We just thank you for your mercy in those relationships, Lord, for your grace. We just pray too, Lord, for just an extra dose of endurance for moms in this season, and anybody who is even being a spiritual mom. Lord, there's so many opportunities right now to just to lean into you and to grow into you, but we've got a lot on our plates that's new and different. So we just pray, Lord, that you would help us in this season to turn our eyes to you. Lord, would you change our perspective? Would you lift up our heads? Would you help us to gaze into your eyes and just receive love from you, Lord? And we just bless all of these moms, foster moms, adoptive moms, single moms, step moms, spiritual moms, mentor moms, all of the moms out there. And we just honor them on this Mother's Day. And we just thank you and praise you and lift your name high, Jesus. And it's your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you, everyone. And we hope to see you this weekend at our services, and have a great night.